So you guys are all beekeepers, so I'm not going to tell y'all what propolis and honey and pollen, y'all know that. What we're going to talk about is what you can tell your customers are the health benefits of your products. This will help you when you're selling your products to this. So to give you a little history of how far back this goes, the Egyptians used propolis in their mummification practices, okay? The Greeks and the Romans, when there was a battle, they would bring propolis to the battlefield to cover the wounds with it. So folks knew about the health benefits of the hive way back when. So we're going to get started with honey because that's the most obvious thing that you guys sell, I know. And make sure that your folks know when you're selling it that the health benefits really are the best when it's local honey within a 50-mile radius of where they live, especially when you're talking about allergies and stuff, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so what are some good things that you can do or your customers can do with honey? One of them is they can make a hydrating drink with it. You see, I see Miss Judy's drinking a Gatorade and Bob's drinking a Powerade. A tablespoon of honey, tablespoon of protein powder, a pinch of Himalayan sea salt, and some spring water. You mix that together, and it's a hydrating drink that doesn't have all the stuff from this. If y'all know anything about the history of Gatorade, do y'all know the history of Gatorade? It came from the University of Florida, the Gators, okay? The Gators, yeah. And so the scientists there analyzed the football players after a very long football practice, analyzed the sweat of the football players and said, we're going to add some flavor to that, lemon lime, and we're going to make us some rehydrating drink with that. So y'all think about that next time you're drinking Powerade. Yeah, you can make your own sports drinks with that. Sunburns, it's a good sunburn reliever. You mix half a cup of honey and a cup of milk. Probably don't sit on your couch right after you do this. Probably ill-advised. Apply the mixture to the sunburn area. Leave on as long as possible to ease the pain and to prevent your skin from peeling. Reapply as needed to ease discomfort and to promote healing. So that's my little sunburn picture. Didn't go out. Healing salve for minor burns, cuts, or scrapes. Have y'all ever put honey on a burn or a scrape? Yeah. My dad was a retired pharmacist. I am surprised he never told me about this. But really the three components of honey are, of course, you got the sugar in it. Y'all knew about that one. Propolis, right? And hydrogen peroxide are the three ingredients inside honey. So the nectar-based compound propolis kills bacteria, while hydrogen peroxide disinfects. I remember when I would get a scraped knee or whatever, my dad would pour hydrogen peroxide on it, blow it. I'd wait for it to bubble. But with honey, it don't run off. It sits there and helps sterilize that. You ever do that with your grandkids, LaRue? Put honey on them?
I also use honey for burns.
It burns, yeah, absolutely. So another plus is the honey dries, it kind of becomes a bandage for that cut or scrape. It also reduces inflammation and pollen allergy symptoms. This is the one we hear the most about, right? It reduces allergy symptoms. Well, that is only true if you're doing the local honey within 50 miles that's raw honey. If you're going to Walmart and just buying the honey over the shelf that has been mixed with corn syrup and boiled to extinction, that's not going to help anybody's allergy. Okay, so really promote local raw honey for allergy prevention. Cough suppressants. Now, I probably shouldn't say all this in front of my preacher, so y'all just ignore me on this part, okay? Mix apple cider vinegar and honey to taste in a small glass jar. Take a tablespoon as often as needed to relieve your minor coughs, colds. In front of my preacher, I'm not saying mix it with anything else, but y'all are adults, okay?
But I've got some mixed with whiskey in my office.
Where are you putting
Yeah, we made some propolis stuff out of stuff that we probably wouldn't buy at Sunday school. Okay. What else? Promote relaxation and restful sleep. Did y'all know that could help with it? Well, yeah. Take a spoonful of raw honey at bedtime and it helps promote restful sleep. Antioxidant effects. Natural honey contains a range of compounds that act as antioxidants, including phytochemicals, flavonoids, and ascorbic acid. Antioxidants reduce oxidative stress in the body by mopping up free radicals. Scientists have linked oxidative stress to a range of chronic health problems, including many cancers. By eating an antioxidant-rich diet, people can reduce the risk of chronic disease. So isn't that pretty awesome? Nutrition. Whoops. Okay. Honey contains specific nutrients that can make it a healthful addition to the diet. Now, you're probably thinking, honey doesn't help, people with diabetes or all that. Actually, research has shown in moderation that honey has a glycemic index of 58, meaning it has a medium effect on the blood sugar levels. So still a much better choice than table sugar for nutrition. More than half of the sugar in honey is fructose, and even with its fructose content, honey is a healthier option than table sugar. All right, treating diarrhea. Wow, this is a subject right after supper we won't talk about in it. A study of 150 children with acute gastroenteritis found that those who received honey with an oral rehydrating solution like Pedialyte had a better recovery from diarrhea than those who did not get the honey. The children who received honey had fewer bowel movements and recovered faster from their illness. To help treat mild diarrhea, try taking a teaspoon of raw honey or mixing honey with a drink. Now, I'm not saying drink a lot of honey, a teaspoon, okay, with something. If you drink too much, then that's probably not going to help your diarrhea, okay? And finally, this is a neat one. This is a neat study. I work in the field of mental health, is what I do. And honey has been shown to protect the brain. And then that's something that we all want, especially in the age where I don't know how many of y'all worry about things like Alzheimer's and things like that, but it's always a concern of mine, especially where I work. But honey may have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that can benefit the brain. An animal study found that rats that consumed honey had protection against brain damage caused by exposure to lead. Raw honey may contain ingredients that help fight inflammation in the hippocampus, which is the part of our brain where memory is stored. Okay, so we talked about the good parts of honey. Let's a couple of negatives here. First, food poisoning. Raw honey, and all of y'all have seen this on your honey bottles. I don't know if y'all put that on your honey bottles, but you should. If you're under 1, it's not a good thing for babies to have. Do y'all know why? Exactly, botulism. Kids over 1 have enough immunity in their system that they can fight it off, but infants under 1, they don't have that yet. So it is dangerous to little kids. So that's one possible side effect. Usually adults, they don't have this issue. And kids over 3 and 4 don't have it, but little babies don't need to eat it. And rhododendrons, I know this is a controversial topic. When I talked about this in Poplarville a few weeks ago, they're like, oh, azaleas aren't a problem around here. Y'all judge that on what you want to. What I'm going to tell you, though, is that Roman soldiers used azalea honey to give to their enemies to poison them. So, the Romans weren't necessarily nice folks all the time, right? Besides crucifying our Christ, they did a lot of other stuff. So what we do is we wait until the azaleas are done before we put our honey supers on. It's not a huge deal because azaleas down on the coast only last about, 2-3 weeks. and the rest of the time it's just a big bush. I don't necessarily love azaleas, but just kind of watch out for that because it is toxic inside the honey. All right, so now that we finished honey, we're going to talk about propolis. Everybody? Yes, ma'am. Miss Judy.
Restful sleep and relaxation. How much?
I would just do about a tablespoon a night.
Tablespoon, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, for the diarrhea, though, that's a teaspoon.
That's a teaspoon.
That's a teaspoon. All right, so everybody knows what propolis is. Don't have to give the lesson on how that is used, but let me give you a little history on it. Let's talk about what the word actually means, propolis. It's Greek. That was LaRue's study back in college. Pro means before, right? And polis means the city. So propolis actually means in defense of the city, and if you think about the bees, that's their beehive is what it's in defense for. So the propolis, of course, seals up all the cracks and stuff like that, but y'all, it is gold. It is gold because of how they get it and what it is. Of course, let me see, the composition of propolis is 50% tree resins, 30% waxes, 10% essential oils, 5% pollen, and 5% plant debris. Fantastic stuff. There was a guy named Pliny the Elder who had this quote, and it's a little quote, so I just want to say this. And by the way, he says he was born in 23 AD, so he is a contemporary of Jesus. Okay, he was like 11 when Jesus was crucified. So to me, it's kind of weird thinking of anybody who's a contemporary of Jesus, but this guy was, Pliny the Elder. In fact, he was Roman, so he probably heard the news and everything. He said, propolis has the property of extracting stings and all foreign bodies from the flesh, dispersing tumors, ripening indurations. I had to look up that word. I didn't know that word. That word means an increase in the fibrous elements in tissue commonly associated with inflammation. Think about sclerosis. That's what it is, okay? Allaying pains of the sinews and cicatrizing, that's a fancy word for healing by scars, ulcers of the most obstinate nature. So Pliny the Elder knew that around 30 AD. So that's pretty amazing. Researchers have identified more than 300 compounds in propolis. The majority of these compounds are in forms of polyphenols. Polyphenols are antioxidants that fight disease and damage in the body. Propolis contains polyphenols called flavonoids, and flavonoids are produced in plants as a form of protection. When you think about all the good things that the doctors say are good for you, green tea, fruit, vegetables, red wine, they all have flavonoids in them. They all have flavonoids in them. Okay, so propolis is thought to have antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory properties. That's a lot of antis. And that's all propolis. When I got a 14-year-old, first year in high school, when she was about 2 or 3 years old, the doctor prescribed this little bottle for her for a little skin infection that she had. Now, that was 12 years ago. We didn't have any clue in the world that we were ever going to be into bees, but for some reason we kept this bottle. Sticky as anything. And Bob and I made a bunch of the tincture. He just bottled this yesterday, by getting our propolis, freezing it, crushing it, and then letting it sit with clear grain alcohol we actually let it sit for 2 weeks. And then we poured it in 1 ounce bottles. What all can it do? I'm glad you asked. My preacher says that all the time. I'm glad you asked. Wound healing. Propolis has special compounds called, this is a word, pinocimbrum, a flavonoid that acts as an antifungal. These anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties make propolis helpful in wound healing. Topical propolis alcohol extract was more effective than a steroid cream in reducing mast cells in oral surgery wounds. Mast cells are associated with inflammation and slowed wound healing. Burn treatment. I remember when I was in college, I got a pretty significant burn when I worked at Gulf Shore Baptist Assembly, dumped 5 gallons of coffee on myself. And my dad got me, again, he was a retired pharmacist, that silver sulfadiazine. There you go. And I had to like put that on myself all the time. And it shows that propolis is actually just as effective as that. My dad would have loved this stuff, y'all. My dad, he might have been a pharmacist, but he was a country boy at heart, wasn't he, LaRue? And if he would have known that we were into something that was nature, he would have been all over it. So just as effective on burns as that silver, say that word again for me? Silverdine. There you go. Gastrointestinal disorders. A study in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine suggests propolis can help treat gastrointestinal disorders, including ulcerative colitis, gastrointestinal cancers, and ulcers. Components in propolis have been shown to effectively eliminate pathogens, including H. pylori, and the research, however, is limited to animal studies and cell cultures. Cold sores and genital herpes. Ointments that contain 3% propolis, and you can see stuff like this over the counter, like Herstat and Cold Sore FX. And if you even look at this one, it even lists right there that it has propolis in it, see? Right there. So one study from the University of Medical Sciences in Poland found when topical propolis was applied 3 times a day, it helped to heal cold sores faster than no treatment. The researchers found the propolis cream not only reduced the amount of herpes virus present in a person's body, but also protected the body against future cold sore breakouts. So pretty cool. Cavity control. Propolis may help fight cavities, a study from Biological and Pharmaceutical Bulletin shows. In lab research, scientists found that components in propolis helped inhibit the growth of Streptococcus mutans, which is the bacteria that contributes to cavities. The study suggests that propolis may also help stop Streptococcus mutans from sticking to the teeth. In fact, I have several books that have recipes that you can use the bee components for, and there's actually a toothpaste recipe that you can make from propolis and like baking soda. For people that want to do that, I'll still kind of buy my toothpaste. But all right, diabetes management. Findings from animal-based research indicates that propolis may aid in the treatment of diabetes. In a study published in Pharmaceutical Research, tests on diabetic rats revealed that treatment with propolis helped lower blood sugar levels and reduce cholesterol. Please note that that's in rats. It hadn't been duplicated in humans yet, but I'm sure those tests are coming. And finally, cancer. Propolis has been suggested to have a role in treating certain cancers. According to a study done by San Diego State University, some of the anti-cancerous effects of propolis include keeping cancerous cells from multiplying, reducing the likelihood cells will become cancerous, and blocking pathways that keep cancer cells from signaling each other. The study also suggests that propolis could be a complementary therapy, not the primary therapy, but it could be something that could help somebody with cancer. I see it being a good partner with that. Okay, so y'all know how you can get propolis. You scrape it off the hive. Y'all are beekeepers. I don't have to explain that. When we did this in Poplarville, we even had the propolis traps and all that with us and showed. But making a good tincture is, I mean, that's gold money right there. Just looking at these online, an ounce of those are about $15, $16. And it helps people. And but it's pretty sticky when you make it, isn't it, Bob?
Another, just something that some of you may want to watch for. Right now I have 2 columns that collect an unusual amount of propolis. They have completely coated the inside of the boxes of the colonies I have. And so, even though propolis is a pain at times, especially when you're extracting, pulling honey, at the same time, I would not clean all of the propolis off of your brood
Yeah.
frames because of the antibacterial effect. There's less European foul brood noted in colonies that are heavier with the collection of propolis.
It definitely keeps the hive sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of times where little field mice have gotten in a hive during wintertime, and when it's opened up in springtime, that mouse is propolized. It looks, that's mummified. And it's the bees' way of keeping their area sterile.
You can put that mouse on your shelf. Under the chimney and keep it.
I think my JoJo would disown me if I did that. All right, so the side effects to propolis, and again, that's what it looks like. If you go to like GNC or something, you can buy propolis that looks just like that. That's what ours that we bought JoJo looks like. Side effects, don't use propolis if you have asthma or allergic to bee byproducts, including honey. If you have allergies to things like conifers, if you're allergic to pine, if you're allergic to poplars like aspen and cottonwood trees, Peru balsams, and this is a big one. This is one I'm actually allergic to, salicylates, which is, thank you. See, I need you for this, man. And look, I put my little pronunciations here and everything. It's not ill. But those are in aspirin and Alka-Seltzers and things like that, and I can't do aspirin at all. Propolis may slow blood clotting and increase the side risk of the risk of bleeding in people with bleeding disorders or during surgery. All right, and the final thing we're going to talk about is pollen. Again, y'all know how the bees bring in pollen, so we don't have to talk about that. In recent years, a number of scientists have published studies on the supposed health benefits of bee pollen. We collected, we have bee traps. I know Randy's got the same ones that we do, and when I saw that he bought some, we went out and bought a bunch of them too. Well, it's good enough for the dirt rooster, it's good enough for us, right? But I like it because when you want to collect the bee pollen, you can slide the little tray thing in there, and when you don't, you just take it out. And what I like to use it for is, when we ever have bad times down here, like a hurricane or other things where the food might be limited for the bees, if you got your own supply of bee pollen, you can feed them back the good stuff. So I'm not necessarily doing too much with the bee pollen other than that. But bee pollen is considered so beneficial that the German Federal Board of Health recognizes it as medicine. Bee pollen is considered a superfood that a lot of people add to food like yogurt, oatmeal, and smoothies. So here are the things that pollen can do for people. It can relieve inflammation. Bee pollen may work similarly to anti-inflammatory drugs. In a publication in the Journal of Science of Food and Agriculture, again using rats, scientists found that bee pollen extract reduced inflammation in rats with swollen paws. I know we worry about bees having paws that are too big, right? Research on mice showed bee pollen had anti-inflammatory effects when used to treat liver disease. Antioxidants. Researchers have found that bee pollen has very high antioxidant properties similar to those of fermented food. Antioxidants help people by counteracting oxidants in our environment like cigarette smoke, pollution, things like that. Bee pollen helps with. Okay. Here we don't have it quite as bad as they do in the big cities. Like, man, when we flew down in Los Angeles, you can just see the air. So, I'm thankful that we live somewhere like this. Yeah. Boosting liver health. The liver is responsible for filtering toxins out of the body. Researchers found that in rats, bee pollen helps keep the liver healthy and can even help the healing process after liver damage. Researchers noted that the rats had no side effects in taking bee pollen compared to silibinin, a medication that also contains antioxidants but can cause harm. Strengthening the immune system. A strong immune system is necessary for fighting off disease and keeping you healthy. One study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that bee pollen naturally inhibits allergic reaction in mice. Another study found in Frontiers in Pharmacology suggests that bee pollen has antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral properties. These properties could help kill off bacteria and viruses such as Staphylococcus aureus, food poisoning. Okay. Working as a dietary supplement, bee pollen could potentially work as a supplement that helps your diet and health. What Bob and I do with our bee pollen is we put it on a dehydrator for, what do you do, a day or two? And that way it won't mold or whatever. So first we freeze it to make sure there's nothing bad in it. And then after we freeze it for a few days, we put it in the dehydrator so it's shelf stable after that. So one study in the Journal of Animal Physiology and Animal Nutrition looked at rabbits that received bee pollen in addition to their regular diet. These rabbits had longer lifespan and also a greater reproductive success. We were worried about rabbits not reproducing fast enough, right? They gave birth to healthier, stronger babies compared to rabbits who didn't take the supplement. Another study in the journal Nutrients found that malnourished old rats experienced improved muscle mass and metabolism after eating a diet that contained bee pollen. It's a little chalky.
Yeah, it tastes like flowers.
But look, if you put it on a yogurt or oatmeal, you wouldn't taste the chalkiness and you would get the benefit from it. All right, so one that affects me that I wish I would have known about years ago is it eases symptoms of menopause. I developed breast cancer 5 or 6 years ago, so they put me on that medication, right there, that tamoxifen, which pushes women into early menopause, whether you're ready for it or not. And bee pollen has been shown to help with the menopausal symptoms, especially the ones that are caused by chemicals, which this tamoxifen does. Okay, so if y'all know anybody that struggles with that, tell them to put some pollen on their oatmeal or something. Wish I would have known about this one. Relieving stress. Anybody feel like this, or is that just me? All right. Bee pollen can increase the blood flow to the body's nervous system, which helps reduce stress. And finally, speeds healing. A study in the journal Pharmaceuticals showed that bee pollen can be used on the skin to speed healing as it boosts blood circulation, kills bacteria, and moistens the skin. So what do you need to know about bee pollen? Always buy it from a local source, somebody that you know. I do not advise going on Amazon and buying bee pollen. You don't really know what you're getting there. Or even a lot of times when you go to GNC or whatever, you don't really know where it came from. Find a local source and get it from them. At least you'll know it's a local area. Because it's possible to buy tainted bee pollen that contains potentially dangerous ingredients reported to cause side effects, including increased heart rate, cardiac arrest, and even death. So it's serious enough that you need to buy it from local folks. So you need to advertise that. If you decide to sell pollen, make sure you let your folks know that you collected it, you dried it. It's nothing that has been bought anywhere on Amazon or Etsy or wherever.
There's too much coming across our borders that's buy local.
Buy local.
Buy local.
Talk to a doctor before taking any supplements, and bee pollen is considered a supplement. Additionally, if you're allergic to anything from bee stings to wasp stings, you might want to avoid or get your clients, your customers to avoid taking pollen. Tell them if they start experiencing itching, swelling, or lightheadedness or trouble breathing, they might want to go see a healthcare provider. And experts also recommend that pregnant women should avoid taking bee pollen as it may interfere with the pregnancy. So that's it on bee pollen. This is where I got all my info. Well, a lot of times when people think, you're a beekeeper, they're thinking you just do honey. And you need to advertise that there's so much healthy stuff that goes with the honey. It's not just to sweeten your tea with. You got health benefits that come from local raw honey that is not pasteurized, is boiled to the point that there's no good stuff left in it. And it doesn't have the corn syrup that it does that's coming over from overseas. And if you go to Walmart, I promise you, if you turn over some of those cheap bottles of honey, you will see the words corn syrup, or honey and corn syrup on the back of it. Y'all, what they do is they dump a bunch of honey and corn syrup in one thing and mix it all together. You don't really know where you're getting it from. And they're trying to compete, trying to say, well, that's cheaper than what the local folks sell for. There's a reason ours costs. All right, that's all I got. I appreciate y'all's time.